Picture this. Early 2000s Hollywood, all that glitz, the glamour, and a young Ashton Kutcher just hitting his stride. He's got plans for a Grammys after party, a date lined up. But that night ends with him peering through a window, seeing something he just writes off as spilled red wine. But it wasn't wine. It was the first clue in something much, much darker. A string of horrific murders, years apart, different states, all tied together. Today, we're diving into the really disturbing case of Michael Thomas Gargiulo, often called the Hollywood Ripper. We're going to unpack the timeline of his crimes, look for those threads that connected them, and explore how investigators, plus one incredibly brave survivor, finally exposed him. It's a case that really makes you think about where danger might actually be hiding. Okay, so let's go back. February 2001, Los Angeles. Ashton Kutcher, big star from that 70s show, right?
Yeah.
Supposed to meet up with Ashley Ellerin. She's a 22-year-old fashion student for this Grammys party. Plan is around 8 p.m.
Right, but he's running late. He calls her place about 7:30 to say so.
And then her roommate calls him back.
Yeah, tells him not to worry. Ashley's still getting ready. He actually talks to Ashley herself around, 8:24 p.m.
Yeah, sounds like everything was normal then. But later, around 10 p.m., when he calls to say he's finally on his way.
No answer. Silence.
So about half an hour later, maybe 10:30, 10:45,
Yeah.
he gets to her place, knocks.
Still no answer.
Lights are on inside, though. He figures, okay, maybe she's mad, he's late, maybe she just left with her roommate.
Makes sense given the circumstances. He was pretty late.
So he takes one last look, peers into her window, and that's when he sees this big, dark stain on the carpet.
And his first thought is, spilled red wine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spilled red wine. I mean, it seemed odd, sure, but in that kind of upscale neighborhood, violent crime just wasn't on the radar.
That's something you'd immediately jump to.
So he just leaves. He has no idea what he's actually just seen. The reality of that stain. Chilling.
And that reality hits the next morning. Around 9 a.m., Ashley's roommate comes home.
And finds her.
Finds Ashley's body on the floor just outside the bathroom. The carpet soaked. Multiple stab wounds, just horrific.
Pronounced dead shortly after.
Yeah, by 9:28 a.m. And this just sent shockwaves through LA, especially that affluent area. It wasn't just a murder, it was incredibly violent.
What puzzled police, though?
No forced entry, absolutely none. No broken locks, no smashed windows, nothing.
Which suggests...
It suggests she knew her attacker, or at least felt comfortable enough to open the door for them.
And that stain Kutcher saw.
That was Ashley's blood, already pooling on the floor, just devastating. And for her family, almost a decade of just nothing. Just questions, please, for answers.
Right, so the case goes cold. Years pass. It must have been agony for the family.
Absolutely. These cold cases are the worst.
But then, a breakthrough. Nothing happens this way, doesn't it? But tragically, it involves another victim.
Yes. And we need to jump forward now. It's 2008. 8 years after Ashley died. We're in Santa Monica, about 25 miles away.
And this is where Michelle Murphy comes in. She's 26.
And what happens to her changes everything.
Tell us about that night. Michelle's gone to bed, right? Around 10:30 p.m.
Yes, settled in for the night. But then she wakes up. Violently.
Wow.
There's a man on top of her. Hoodie, baseball cap, and he's stabbing her. Chest, shoulders, arms. Just a frenzy.
Oh my God, that's pure terror.
Unimaginable. But somehow, incredibly, she fights back. She manages to kick him off her.
That took amazing courage.
It really did. And it seemed to throw him off. He actually stops the attack, flees.
And says something bizarre as he leaves.
Yeah, he says, "I'm sorry." Just weird. Michelle is badly injured, traumatized, obviously, but she survives.
And the attacker? He messed up,
He did, critically. In the struggle, he cut himself.
leaving his DNA.
Exactly, left his DNA right there at the scene.
Yeah.
That was the key, the absolute key investigators needed.
So with that DNA, what happens?
It doesn't take long. A few weeks later, they get a match. They arrest a 32-year-old air conditioner repairman, Michael Thomas Gargiulo.
Arrested for the attempted murder of Michelle Murphy.
Correct. And when Michelle hears his name, she realizes something truly horrifying.
What?
She knew him, he was her neighbor, lived right across the street.
Wow. Just right there, in plain sight.
That realization was huge. It helped investigators connect so many dots.
Okay, so Gargiulo is arrested for attacking Michelle. But the police must have thought, wait a minute, is this connected to other things?
Oh, absolutely. They start digging into his past, his movements, and that's when this really, really chilling pattern starts to take shape.
What kind of
It
pattern?
wasn't like a typical serial killer profile, He's linked to where he lived. Wherever Gargiulo moved, it seemed like a woman living nearby ended up murdered, brutally. Stabbed.
So he wasn't necessarily picking random strangers.
No, that's the crucial part. He seemed to target women he had some level of acquaintance with, maybe just proximity, maybe a brief interaction, but this meant...
No forced entry.
Exactly, because they might recognize him, open the door. It made each crime look isolated at first.
Yeah.
Baffling. He was like an insider predator.
Exploiting that basic sense of neighborhood trust. That's terrifying.
And it leads right back to Ashley Ellerin, doesn't it?
It does. So you're saying back in 2001, Gargiulo lived near Ashley, knew her.
Yes, he lived very close by. And they had met.
Huh?
It was something really ordinary. He apparently helped her once when she had a flat tire, gave her his business card, for AC repair.
Just a normal neighborly interaction.
Seemingly, but that's probably why she opened the door. She recognized him maybe just as that guy from the neighborhood or the AC guy.
And incredibly, her friends actually mentioned someone suspicious.
They did. They told police early on about this guy, Mike the Furnace Man, they call him. Said he seemed kind of obsessive, maybe hanging around her place too much.
But it wasn't enough then.
No, not without harder evidence, especially with no forced entry. It just didn't stick. Frustrating looking back.
And the pattern didn't stop with Ashley. As police dug, they found more victims, right? Maria Bruno.
Correct. This was 2005. Gargiulo is still in the LA area. Maria Bruno, 35 years old, a mother of 4.
How was she killed?
Stabbed to death in her sleep. Her body was also mutilated. Another horrific scene. Again, no obvious leads initially.
But forensics found something.
They did. It seemed small at the time. A single blue surgical slipper, like a booty, found at the scene, stained with her blood.
A slipper?
Yeah. Fast forward to after Gargiulo's arrest for attacking Michelle. Police search his place. And what do they find?
Boxes of the same slippers?
Boxes of them. Turns out he wore them all the time for his AC repair work, keep things clean.
Wow. So that linked him directly to the Maria Bruno scene.
A direct forensic link. It showed how his normal work life and these horrific crimes were disturbingly intertwined.
And it goes back even further, doesn't it? Before California. To his first suspected victim.
We believe so, yes. We have to go way back now. 1993, Chicago, Illinois.
Tricia Pacaccio, 18 years old, high school student.
Found stabbed multiple times on the front steps of her family's home. She'd been out with friends the night before.
And Gargiulo
Knew her too. They were neighbors. He'd actually given her a ride to a friend's house that very night. Same chilling pattern. Proximity. Acquaintance.
Unbelievable, that connection again.
And here's something else that only came out later. Years later, after Gargiulo's name hit the news for the California crimes,
What happened?
some of his old co-workers from back then came forward. They remembered him making this, sick joke.
A joke? About what?
About killing a woman, leaving her on the steps for dead. They just thought it was a weird, dark joke at the time, didn't think anything of it.
But then, learning about Tricia.
Exactly. Suddenly, it wasn't a joke, it sounded like a confession. It became crucial supporting evidence later on.
But there was DNA evidence in Tricia's case much earlier, wasn't there? Found under her fingernails.
There was. In 2003, when her case was reopened, they did find his DNA under her nails, likely from her fighting back.
So why wasn't he charged then? That sounds pretty damning.
It does now, but back in 2003, the Cook County State Attorney's Office declined to indict. Their reasoning.
Casual contact.
Yeah. They argued the DNA could have transferred just from him being in the car with her earlier that night. Casual, non-criminal contact.
Is that a common issue, that defense?
It highlights how DNA evidence, especially trace DNA, was understood differently then. Proving it came from the act of murder, beyond a reasonable doubt, was harder. The science and the legal precedents were still evolving. Prosecutors were maybe more cautious.
But that changed.
It changed dramatically once the full picture emerged. After he was linked to the LA murders, that same DNA evidence in Tricia's case, combined with the coworker testimony, it became undeniable. The context was everything.
So they finally charged him for Tricia's murder too.
Yes, in 2011, almost 20 years after she was killed. The Hollywood Ripper connection finally made that older evidence impossible to ignore.
So justice starts to catch up. The trial in California, 2019.
Right, a long, very difficult trial. He was formally convicted for murdering both Maria Bruno and Ashley Ellerin.
And Ashton Kutcher testified.
He did. It was significant. He had to relive that night, seeing the stain, realizing later what it was. A very powerful piece of the prosecution's case.
What's Gargiulo's status now?
He's still actually awaiting sentencing in California for those convictions. These things can take a very long time, especially with appeals and, the complexity.
And the Illinois case? for Tricia Pacaccio.
That's still pending. He'll face trial there eventually, but it depends on how things conclude in California.
So for Tricia's family,
Yeah.
it's still not over.
Yeah.
Almost 3 decades later.
An agonizing wait. It really underscores the incredible persistence needed by investigators and the pain families endure waiting for closure.
So just to recap, we're talking about Michael Gargiulo, a man who preyed on women he knew, women who lived near him, used that familiarity, that trust.
Not the typical stranger danger scenario we often imagine. It was insidious, happening right under people's noses.
It took years, incredible police work, forensic advances, and frankly, Michelle Murphy's survival and bravery to piece it all together.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? That extreme danger might not be some shadowy figure, but someone who seems perfectly normal, someone who helps you with a flat tire, someone who lives across the street.
It's a deeply unsettling thought. It challenges that feeling of safety we expect in our own neighborhoods.
Which leaves us with this question to ponder, really. What does a case like the Hollywood Ripper tell us about how hard it is to catch serial offenders when their victims seem unconnected and their whole method is based on blending in on familiarity?
Yeah, and what lessons are there for connecting crimes across different times, different places, especially when early clues get missed or the science isn't quite there yet? How do we get better at seeing these patterns sooner?
Definitely something to think about. How do we look past the surface?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive today. It's a disturbing story, but an important one. We hope you'll keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay informed.